Good evening, members. Okay. Thank you. We'll call the meeting to order. Thank you, members of council, for attending this evening. We have Ms. Licio Spagnolo attending via Zoom. Before we begin, I'd like to read our land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that the ground on which we live is the traditional territory of Caldwell First Nation of the Three Fires Confederacy and the original people of Point Pelee and Pelee Island and its surrounding lands and waters, and that of the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot peoples. We recognize and respect the First Nations who are stewards of the land and waters of Turtle Island and who have embraced this stewardship since time immemorial. We would also like to acknowledge the contributions of other nearby First Nation communities and all original people across Turtle Island. We'll have a moment of silent reflection and we'll stand for the playing of our national anthem. Adoption of the agenda that the June 14th, 2022 regular council meeting agenda be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Desjardins, support by Councillor Carrick. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Anita, I know you're there, but I'm looking at the council table first, so I'm not forgetting about you. Any disclosures of conflict of interest on items on the agenda? Seeing none, that'll be noted. Adoption of the, sorry, I said adopt. We did the adoption of the agenda. Now we're going to do the adoption of the minutes of the closed and regular council meeting held May 24th, 2022, be adopted as presented. Councillor Carrick, Deputy Mayor Meloche, all in favor? That carries. Mayor's comments. I have 3. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to congratulate the LaSalle Proud Initiative that recently held a ribbon cutting ceremony to celebrate the progressive rainbow crosswalk located at the entrance of Zares on Malden Road. I'd also like to acknowledge the first anniversary of the tragedy that happened in London, Ontario on June 6, 2021. A Muslim family was killed in what police are calling a hate-motivated attack. Our community will continue to support our Muslim neighbors. There is no place for hate crimes in our country. We had an amazing turnout at LaSalle Strawberry Festival this past weekend with over 33,000 people visiting the event over the weekend. Team LaSalle stepped up yet again and ensured the festival was a huge success. Every department was a part of this process, and all of us on council are proud of our team and appreciate the work that goes into such an event. It's great to get back to our LaSalle traditions, and we're proud of this community event. Thank you. We have a delegation Play for Cure. We have Mr. Casey and Harvey and Elaine Snadden for verbal presentation. Mr. Casey.
Good evening. Well, thank you for having me, and congratulations on a very successful Strawberry Fest. Happy to report we went Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I'm here to thank you as a partner with Play for a Cure. The community of LaSalle stepped up in a huge way to help us with our events. As you know, we are a grassroots organization. Nobody makes any money, and we raise money for a charity called the Cancer Research Collaboration Fund. In particular, we'd like to thank for your support in donating the ice time, the use of the multipurpose room, allowing us to put up the phenomenal banner at the back of Rink A, and then also putting our logo on the ice. And we were requested to bring this jersey, which I'll present in a moment. But I wanted to let you know that because of your support this year, well, actually, even as a refresher, 2019, we were able to raise $284,000. And we were, as you know, we were going to have the event in 2020, which we had to put on hold because of the pandemic. But, you know, as with, you know, something that we talk to any cancer patient about is that you do not lose hope. We don't want people to lose hope. Some people are in a fight, some people are in a battle, some people are in a journey, whatever that is, we support it. And we did not let the event go. And you know, we continued planning. I can't tell you how many variations of the event I planned in my head. But ultimately we were able to execute a phenomenal event, and we ended up raising a net amount of $400,000. On top of that, which kind of a really nice aside, is a lot of the money that we had raised in preparation for 2020 was invested through the Windsor-Essex Community Foundation. And because of their stewardship, we actually netted out an additional $97,000. So all said and done, we were pretty close to $500,000. So the reason we're here today is to really thank the town of LaSalle, the Department of Parks and Rec, and all the staff. Without the partnership, we would not be able to execute such a great event. So we have some certificates of appreciation that we've put together for the staff. So I'm not sure exactly everyone that's here, but we have certificates for Owen Stickholler, Jordan Refuse, Mark Masanovich, Kelly Robinette, Joe Bondi, Roy Casagrande, Darlene Percy, Ed Gerard, Michael Bright, Chris Nelson, and Mackenzie Pilon. And we actually brought the certificates. Would you mind if we actually presented them to them here?
We have a couple of them here, at least. Oh, three. Okay, three. Come on up.
Darlene's here for sure.
Thank you so much for all your.
Come on up here.
I don't want
Come here.
Jeff's got to.
Next. So they that's a game. This is my this is my actual jersey. This is my jersey that I signed while the And Thanks. We got one other one. Sorry, almost done. We have a ton of volunteers at the event. We had over 100. We know that Sue, you would have loved to be there, but you were unable to. But Anita, I know you're there virtually. One of our biggest supporters who reaches out all the time. What can I do? How can I help? What can I do? How can I help? What can I do? Which she does with many organizations. And so we have a certificate of appreciation for Anita as well. Thank you for your support. It means the world to us. Thank you. So, one other thing I would like to say, because I'm a talker. In addition to, like, we're obviously raising money to support local cancer research, and we also, we advocate behind the scenes in discussing with the hospital and the university and the college and the different municipalities to really help push the initiative of integrating cancer research into treatment, which is something that will make a dramatic difference in the outcomes for our patients. Recently, they developed WeSpark, which is a collaboration between the university, the college, and both of the hospitals. It's a huge initiative that is gaining momentum. And about a month ago, there was a press release from the hospital and it was a memorandum of understanding of a partnership between the university and the hospital, that there will be designated space adjacent to the new hospital that will include a research park, that will include designated space for collaborative cancer research. This is a huge step for our community, and it's something that we'd like to thank you for your support on, and we know that we all believe in it and something that we need to keep pushing for. So again, finally, thank you for your help and your support, and April 13-14, 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. It's a huge accomplishment to raise almost $500,000, and we're happy to be a partner. Thank you. And last but not least, asking delegations, we have Lynette Bain and Jason Toner. Gordon Orr couldn't be with us tonight, but he sent his second and third best, right?
Thanks for that warm introduction, Your Worship. Well, that certainly is a tough act to follow, knowing how giving our community is. There's a lot of spirit here, and I think that shows in our tourism industry as well. So good evening, Mayor Bondi and members of LaSalle Town Council. My name is Lynette Bain, and I am the Vice President of Destination Development with Tourism Windsor Essex Pelee Island. And I am joined tonight by Jason Toner, our Director of Marketing and Communications. And as Mayor Bondi alluded to, our CEO Gordon Orr is unable to join us tonight, but he does send his regrets. I think this is one of his favorite council to be with, because I wasn't saying that to you, Mark. So back to business. Sorry about that. Tonight we are here. We are here with the latest edition of our 2022-2023 visitor guide, which I've left at your places, and it's just been released. And we have a brief PowerPoint tonight to share, highlighting some of our areas of focus for 2022. Now, we did save the best for last because this is our last of 9 council presentations across the region. And we have been doing this leading up to the month of June, which we have claimed as Tourism Month. And we do this for a couple of reasons. First, we want to make sure that our elected officials like you are more informed and better informed about the work our organization does. And secondly, we want to provide you an opportunity to ask any questions you may have in this forum. But before we start the PowerPoint, I know I don't have to remind council that the tourism and hospitality industry was hit first, hit the hardest, and will be the longest to recover. The path to reopening has been uneven and incremental. Reopening is not recovery, but there are better days ahead. We have said a number of times that we can hope for better days, but we have to plan for these days so that we can realize this hope. That is what we have been doing at Tourism Windsor Essex Pelee Island, planning in concert with our tourism stakeholders so we are ready to go. It's time to visit Windsor Essex. So let's start the PowerPoint. Our mission. Well, I can start, and when we get there, the first slide is about our mission. As an accredited destination, as accredited by Destinations International, we are the region's leading tourism industry collaborative, committed to enhancing the region's economy and quality of life. Our core functions. I think we need to go back. I don't know where. I think maybe restart the PowerPoint would be great. Now you've seen all the slides. Okay, next slide. There we go. I think that's where I'm at. And our core functions are supporting industry development and individual operators, actively facilitating partner engagement, and effectively marketing our destination. Next slide. Here's our organizational chart. This is the team of dedicated tourism professionals that Gordon has the privilege to work with every day, if we do say so ourselves. An important part of our team is also our regional tourism committee member, which is ably represented by Don Hodre, your director of strategy and engagement. Don has been a great collaborative partner. Next slide. There you can see our organizational governments. We have an 11-member board. It's a mix of politicians and stakeholders. You will see on our executive that Mayor Santos is our chair, and County Council is also represented by directors, Deputy Mayor Crystal Malash and Warden McNamara. When we look back over the year, we do have to recognize that what we have accomplished together within a united visitor industry, because the resilience of this industry has been nothing but short of a miracle. Next slide. Where we are at now as an industry and as an organization, our path to reopening has started to see some growth. Next slide. Our social media platforms across the board have all seen positive growth in Q1. Next slide. Our hotel occupancy is static at about 40% year over year, but the average daily room rate has grown by about $17 per room. Next slide. Our website traffic has seen an 18% increase over 2021 and continues to grow. Next slide. Our digital services have seen gains in referral revenue. But tonight is about looking forward. And next slide. It's time. It's time to visit Windsor Essex. Next slide. It's time to use our social media campaign designed to have locals help us identify their favorites, knowing that where locals like to go, so will visitors. Use our 7th annual Best of Windsor Essex Award winners must-see list as trip inspiration ideas on where to go and visit this summer. Next slide. Our 2022 Destination Development and Marketing Plan that was approved by our board after stakeholder consultation and engagement is available on our partner portal and continues to address initiatives to showcase our areas of focus. Next slide, which are food and drink, arts and culture, outdoor adventure, and entertainment. And our plan contains new initiatives and programs that are designed to market the region and build upon our product development. It's time for new and enhanced product and program development initiatives to grow the capacity of the local tourism industry and our stakeholders, which Jason is going to walk us through.
Thank you, Lynette. As Lynette mentioned, next slide. We'll have new program and product enhancements, including a self-guided journey through our destinations past through an historic sites Vanished Village trail. Next slide. We're conducting an LGBTQ+ market readiness audit through a stakeholder working group led by the Canadian Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. Next slide. Our birding guide highlights how to backyard bird, identifying different species, and includes a map of primary birding sites in Windsor, Essex. Our Windsor, Essex fishing guide is packed with some of the best places to fish, where to grab your bait and reel, and what species are found right here in Windsor, Essex. Next slide. Our new paddling guide is launched, calling out to offshore excursions, boat launch points, and rentals. Next slide. Events and promotions for our Barrels, Bottles, and Brews Trail, including our digital flight log. And next slide, our first ever Fiesta weekend, which was held in early May. Next slide. Epic Wineries digital tasting pass and an enhanced event ticketing platform. And next slide, and a refacing of directional signage to help you find your ways through our Epic Wine region. Next slide, please. In 2022, we'll be investing money and resources into gaining research intelligence on who our visitors are, and it will be timely, relevant data to measure visitation to the region and the economic benefit of that visitation. Next slide. It's also time for the return of our US visitors. One of the largest partnership campaigns ever with Destination Ontario is on now, and we're in partnership with top-tier DMOs Toronto, Niagara Falls, and Ottawa. The campaign is titled It's Your Neighbor. Next slide. This is a $2.5 million US targeted digital campaign placed in rubber tire traffic markets in Michigan and Ohio. Next slide, please. Our partnership with Destination Ontario and leveraging provincial dollars extends into the spring, summer, fall, and winter, focusing on outdoor adventure and arts and culture, and as well as food and drink. Next slide. A major focus of developing compelling and engaging content is to enlist the help of local and out-of-market influencers and content creators to showcase our region with itinerary-focused seasonal experiences. Next slide. Like last year, this year, to somewhat of a lesser degree, but still be important, will be the year of the staycation. Our summer staycation campaign is a hyper-local focus campaign about things to do in Windsor, Essex, with easily downloadable itineraries, viable experiences, and more. Next slide. You'll notice that this year's official visitor guide is back to being a visitor guide rather than the staycation guide that we named it last year. Our main print collateral piece is in your hands, distributed across the region, and a digital campaign is launching this week to gather visitors from the GTA and Southern Ontario back to Windsor, Essex this summer. Next slide. Our website has seen important growth in digital traffic, which Lynette mentioned, and will continue to be our most important digital marketing tool. Next slide. And this year we've had new enhancements to the front page, including a profile on trending content, profiling buyable experiences, deals and hotel accommodation packages, and as well an enhanced event guide. I'd like to hand the presentation back over to Lynette to close out.
Okay, thank you, Jason. On the screen, you're going to see information about our Ontario Staycation Tax Credit. Thanks to the, I think she's former now, Honorable Lisa MacLeod, the Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture Industries. She and her government came up with a $270 million funding envelope to act as a financial incentive to encourage overnight visitation anywhere in the province of Ontario. Attention Windsorites and our friends in the county, it's time to make an overnight staycation in Windsor, Essex. Save those hotel receipts and get rewarded at tax time for doing so. Next slide. And it's time to continue supporting our local retailers and restaurants. And on behalf of a grateful tourism and hospitality industry, thank you for doing so. Next slide. We are looking forward to seeing those of you who plan to join us on Thursday, June 16th at noon for the return of our in-person annual general meeting. This year hosted by the Canadian Transportation Museum and Heritage Village in Essex, featuring a keynote presentation by the team at Destination Ontario. Next slide. Thank you very much for your time this evening. And more importantly, thank you for continuing to invest in tourism and for your support of our team at Tourism Windsor Essex Pelee Island. Your worship, we would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Great presentation. Second time Deputy Mayor and I have seen it because you were at County Council. Any questions, Council? Deputy Mayor Meloche.
Not a question, just a statement. I've really enjoyed my past almost 4 years on your committee. I've learned a lot about our own community that I honestly didn't know before. And the work you guys have done in the past year and a half, 2 years is something that I think most people won't forget. Anyone in the hospitality industry anyways, because you've done a lot to help them get through this really tough time. And I just want to say thank you to you guys, because you guys have just done a really amazing job coming up with some really different concepts and some really great ideas, and the marketing has been amazing. And on a side note, I had a box of these dropped off, I would say, at the parlor about a week ago. They were gone in 48 hours. So our community is really excited about supporting local and trying to find new things to do. And I think you guys have just done an amazing job with it. So thank you.
I thought you were going to make a recommendation. We have a meeting at one of those wineries, and this, I guess that won't work, but we can always explore and pour with Gordon Orr, right?
You are the mayor, so you get to make those choices. And Deputy Mayor will make sure to get you some more guides. Thank you for displaying them.
Well, thank you for the presentation. It's well done. It, as Deputy Mayor Meloche said, when you presented at County Council, that's the first time for me. And it was like, wow, it's amazing what you do behind the scenes. So it's really appreciated. Thank you. And as Deputy Mayor said, the hospitality industry should thank you very much. And hopefully you use that $270 million to defer some of these people coming into Essex County. Thank you very much. Have a great night. Give our best to Gordon. Thank you. Motion to receive. Councillor Reno, Councillor Carrick, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Next up, we have Michael Capucci, Manager of Engineering, LaSalle Smo Coast Dock Removal. Before we do that, Mr. Capucci, a little off here, but I see Mr. Tan. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything or you're just here to listen. Well, we'll find out after the vote on Mr. Capucci's presentation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayors, members of council. This report is regarding the removal of the marina docks as part of the Small Coast waterfront and awarding it to Hope Marina for the estimated price of $76,000. As part of the Small Coast project, we've already begun restorations of the structure as well as building the parking lot. Outside both the scopes of those projects was the dock removals to beautify the slip there. Further to this gentleman's comment regarding having boat docks in the future, it is the intent to have docks replaced in that slip at a different location closer to the actual river. Just there's some wall work that will need to be done at some point, which would require us to remove the docks no matter what, and then reinstall some new ones to replace some of the wall work. Mr. Mark might be able to speak a little bit more about that, but my recommendation here is that we remove the docks as part of the Small Coast project at this time.
Thank you.
And I can answer
Mr.
any
Mark.
questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Further to Mr. Capucci's presentation, as council is aware that the marina cut that exists out there today, about 3/4 of that is going to be recaptured as a stormwater management pond and closed off from the Detroit River. In doing so, there's some significant wall work that actually has to be done, some steel break wall work that has to be done in order to create that close off from the river. In addition to that, the piece that will remain open to the river does require some upgrading as well. So the existing current boat docks are all welded to the wall. So any work on the wall will necessitate removal of those docks. In the future, not part of this current 5-year plan that takes us up to 2026, but there is a thought of a future transient marina at some point in time in the future. And when future councils make those decisions on the next phases, when that phase becomes active, that's when new docks will be put in. There's a whole host of other associated support items for transient marina, such as staffing, other things, hydro water and things of that nature that are not currently in any of the phases. So certainly in the future, when we get a better handle on the actual items and the complete fixture in the complete aspect of what we want to build out there, you'll see some additional work occurring in the piece that's left over that stays open to the river, in addition to adding new docks and modernizing the docks as well at that point in time. So with that may address some of the ideas of what is coming forward. The thought of bringing this forward at this point is in the next few months, the event center will be opening. And certainly there will be an event plaza on the backside of the event center. So this will enhance that view that people will see and enjoy out there, as opposed to seeing a whole bunch of dilapidated docks at this point in time. Some of the break wall right now is dilapidated as well. So we have to keep people away from that because it is a trip hazard. So we're trying to work out those details and trying to advance some of this other work forward in future years as we progress through the redevelopment of that site.
Thank you, Mr. Mara. Out of respect to Mr. Tan, would you like to come up and say a few words? But you have to come to the mic so the hearing audience can hear you. It's being recorded. So when you sit, there's a button to your left. Just push that and it should light up in red. Yes. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, I'm impressed with what's going on down there. It looks like quite the project you're doing, and I'm impressed. But I do realize there is a shortage of dockage right now in the area. I've talked to quite a few people who can't get wells. I know of one fellow that was keeping his boat in my place for years, and I winter stored with him at Paul Dezel's place this year. He tells me he had to go all the way to Bell River to get a well. So I think it's none of my business. I've got a dock in front of my house. I'm okay. And but I am kind of concerned about some of my friends. So that was the thinking. And you guys have done a lot of studies on this stuff, so you know a lot more than I do. I just go by hearsay and what's going on. I've heard it. So.
Well, thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. If you want to hit that button again, and there you go. Thanks for coming, Mr. Tan. Council questions, Deputy Mayor Meloche.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi, through you. I guess maybe just a comment or question, I don't know. I did reach out to administration just to clarify, because our plans did show us having that back quarter as a transient type marina. And I think that's really an important part to what we are doing down there, because that brings tourism into LaSalle. It allows people from other communities to stop in, walk shops, hopefully we have down there, or restaurants that we have down there. So I definitely want to be sure that when we're looking at the next phase, or we're starting to plan different details, that is a really important aspect to it. And I don't know where that falls in the plan. I guess that's the hard part to kind of figure out at this point. I did have several residents call me concerned with the removal of the docks, afraid that we weren't ever going to bring them back. So I think that's the only thing that I'm not really sure how to answer those residents without it being in any of our current plans right now. I mean, it shows, but it's technically not part of any of our phases. So how do we move from here? Like, I do believe it's a really, really important part to tourism for LaSalle.
Mr. Mara.
Thank you. Certainly, council has approved a 5-year plan, which takes us to 2026. In that plan, some of the work that's been identified is the event center, the parking lot associated with the event center, skate trail water feature, which will be forthcoming, and some work on the festival lawn. Certainly, when we were at the budget session in December, we did present a revised concept, a real rough sketch of revised concept of an overall full build out of that entire site. Administration is just working on finalizing that. So that should be forthcoming to council in the next meeting, or in the next few meetings in July or into August, that we will bring forward the full concept and we'll show what's planned to be built out there on the full concept. It really comes down in driving force is budget, and when council wants to approve additional monies to be spent out there and bring the various other aspects of this plan forward. So we can certainly look at those types of things when council is willing and wants us to look at those and brings those options forward. But certainly within the 2026 up to 2026, we are just doing the few things that I have just mentioned earlier. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because I said it's I think it's very important to the success of what we're doing down at the waterfront. As for operating it as a daily marina, it's kind of interesting because when we first looked at this project, we actually had many marina owners coming up to us telling us, do not open a marina, don't run one, don't compete against us. And now there's not enough slips. But good news is I did hear there's a marina opening next to the old Mueller's Marina that's coming on board within the next month or so. So hopefully that'll help alleviate some of the stress that our own residents are feeling not having somewhere for their boats. But otherwise, I appreciate the report because like I said, I called administration to get some clarification because that is something I was surprised how many residents called concerned with the idea of us removing all of those docks.
Councillor Reno, then Councillor Carrick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Peter. The removal of the docks, I'm just wondering about a timeline and how that's going to affect our opening of our center and the hundreds of events that are probably going to be planned there in the next few months.
Mr. Mara.
Thank you. Mr. Capucci might have, again, I'll ask Mr. Capucci to maybe confirm this, but from my understanding is this will begin sometime mid-July and take about 2 months to remove. There is a fish window, an environmental fish window that we have to avoid and beyond July 15th, we avoid that. So they're able to start working in waterworks and things of that nature. So with that, Mr. Capucci, I believe that's the timeline.
Yep, that's correct. And all the work will be done within the slip. So there won't be any cranes, excavators on the actual land. It's all being done by the boat. So it won't impact hopefully anyone's lawns or anything like that we have constructed.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Councillor Carrick.
Thanks. I'll be quick. A lot of it's been answered. I just want to make sure that the retention pond is a necessity that we have to have for that location. So as we move forward down the road, we look at the possibility of transient boating on the outside of it there. So for the pond is the goal, if I didn't hear what you had said, is it to have it for the retention pond at the end of this year?
Thank you for that question. On the retention pond and the storm drainage work that's actually proposed, that's a separate project that's currently going through a master drainage study right now. There is a planned environmental assessment public information center planned for June 29th coming up here at Town Hall. That information is just being finalized right now, so we will be communicating that out. That will work our way through the master plan study, which identifies the pond. So subsequent funding is available for constructing that pond as part of the National Disaster Mitigation Fund. So that is going to be a totally separate project from the Small Coast Waterfront work that's going on. And we will continue to advise council and update council as those plans are finalized and as we progress to the next phases, constructing the pond and doing any of the peripheral storm drainage improvements up there.
Okay, so long-term, short-term, long-term, if we need it, so it's going to happen. So if we can do the back end down the road, then that's appropriate too, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mara. That was the good news story where we're going to spend some of that 15 million in that DMAF grant. Thank you. Okay. Council's pleasure. Moved by Deputy Mayor Meloche, support Councillor Carrick. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. And Mr. Tan, thank you for coming and giving us your opinion. Okay. I think we'll call on the clerk for the 2022 Municipal Election Compliance and Audit Committee.
Good evening, Council. So before you have a report for the Election Compliance Audit Committee. It's that time of year, and we need to reestablish the committee for the 2022-2026 term of council. What the report is looking for this evening is council's approval of the terms of reference and authorization that we put out a call for applications and that I'm authorized to bring forward recommendations to a future meeting for members to appoint. So subject to any questions, those are my asks this evening.
Any council questions? Council's pleasure. Motion received, Deputy Mayor Meloche, support Councillor Dietros Spagnolo. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Ms. Beggs, regarding the Bill 109, the More Homes for Everyone Act 2022 and amendments to the Planning Act.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. This report deals with Bill 109 and subsequent changes to the Planning Act. I've prepared a very short presentation. I'd just like to share my screen. Okay, so I don't know how many of you know about Bill 109, but it was recently introduced by the provincial government and about March 30th of 2022. It's known as the More Homes for Everybody Act, for Everyone Act rather. And the bill was passed by the legislature receiving royal assent in April 14th of 2022. So the key initiatives surrounding the legislation include helping to streamline the municipal development approvals process, which is really a key element behind the intent of the bill itself, supporting and encouraging timely decision-making at the municipal level, and enhancing transparency and enhancing transparency and increasing certainty of development-related costs. So this legislative framework calls for a number of amendments to the Planning Act, the Development Charges Act, and the City of Toronto Act, as well as amendments to the regulations under all of these subsequent acts. I think it's important to note that while the province clearly doesn't have all the answers just yet, they're committed to additional funding programs to help support these legislative initiatives going forward. So I wanted to, it's hard to see. I don't know that everybody can see it. You have it? Okay, sorry about that. I wanted to just run through the different Planning Act amendments that come out of Bill 109. The first is an obligation to do pre-consultation for any Planning Act application. So the new legislation establishes rules around conducting pre-consultation for the site plan approval process specifically. And this regulation comes into effect July 1st of 2022. So for this particular regulation, no action is required on the part of the town of LaSalle. Our current official plan outlines policies requiring pre-consultation at the early stage, and that's established as part of section 7.12.1 of the town's official plan. The next legislation as part of Bill 109 looks at establishing site plan as a complete application, and complete application requirements are prescribed within the new legislation. They mandate that the municipality is to inform the applicant of a complete Planning Act application within 30 days of having received the application itself. This comes into effect January 1st, 2023. And our current OP establishes policies around complete application requirements. So there's no action there just at this moment. The planning department will be reviewing and amending our current site plan approval application form to ensure that it complies with the complete application requirements stipulated as part of Bill 109. As part of this complete application requirement, they're also suggesting a partial refund of application fees if a decision is not reached within the statutory timeframe. So the legislation contains new punitive provisions requiring the municipality to refund in part or in full for applications if a decision by the municipality is not made within the timelines prescribed in the Planning Act. So this change is meant to incentivize timely decision-making on the part of the planning department. This comes into effect January 1st of 2023. So there's no action required at this time. The province continues to explore how this amendment should be implemented. I think there's some tricky elements to this. It puts the onus on the planning department and the municipality to make decisions with a quick turnaround. And in order for us to do that, we have to have all the supporting documentation behind a development proposal. So I think they're still trying to understand how to properly implement that. Acceptance of surety bonds as a form of financial security. This is one I think that has been kicked around for a while. And the legislation looks at the acceptance of different financial securities required to secure commitments made as part of a municipal planning approval, coming into effect January 1st of 2023. So no action is required at this time. Again, I think the province is really trying to understand how to make this particular regulation have legs and what formats of surety and their relative applicability shall be enforced. And then I think the last one that possibly has the most will be the most significant to the town of LaSalle operation is the mandatory site plan approval delegation. And so the legislation requires municipalities to pass a bylaw to appoint an authorized designate to oversee and approve site plan control applications. The intent of the change is to help streamline the municipal approval process for the development community. So this particular regulation comes into effect January 1st of 2022. So in terms of implementing this regulation, we're looking to pass a bylaw to authorize the director of planning, which is myself, and in the alternative, the deputy CAO to issue site plan approval on behalf of the town. So I think in order to really understand what this means, I just wanted to do a brief recap of exactly what site plan control is for council and when exactly it gets applied. So site plan control is a tool administered under Section 41 of the Planning Act, and it's really used as a way for the municipality to regulate certain development applications and proposals that come forward. So generally, site plan control is used for medium to high density residential developments, industrial, commercial, and institutional developments, larger scale renovations and any building additions, as well as the expansions to some parking lot areas. And the process really is designed to examine the technical aspects of a proposed development and to ensure that new development is really safe and functional, compatible with surrounding land uses, and contributes to sort of the overall strategic direction for the town of LaSalle. So it's really meant to be sort of a technical administrative function. Typically, some of the elements that get explored as part of site plan control involve, the orientation of the building, vehicular and pedestrian access, landscaping, drainage, stormwater management, traffic impacts, parking, those type of elements. And I just wanted to give you the level of comfort that you need to know that, these assessments are reviewed by administration against, the town of LaSalle's official plan and the town of LaSalle zoning bylaw, which are documents that are approved and adopted by council. So those are the measures to which we, would assess the development applications coming forward. So lastly, I wanted to just run through the current site plan approval process so you have a good understanding of how it works here in LaSalle. So when we get an expression of interest from the development community for a specific development application, we hold a pre-consultation with the municipal staff. And as part of that pre-consultation meeting, we identify as a group between planning and engineering all of the reports and drawings that will be required for it to be considered a complete application. That formal application then gets submitted to the town, and the application is circulated to all the internal departments as well as the external agencies for their review and consideration. Following that, we have our first technical review by staff, where we meet as a group between planning and engineering and fire and the building departments and review the application against, the zoning bylaw and different municipal standards. And we provide comments back to the applicant on the acceptability of the proposal. Based on those comments, the applicant resubmits revised drawings and revise their reports if needed. And then following that, we have a second technical review by staff where we provide additional comments back to the applicant if required. We then would prepare a staff report with a recommendation for approval, and then council would issue a decision. So provided that the development is approved, then we engage the town solicitor to prepare a draft agreement. The applicant would review that agreement in draft format. The agreement would be finalized and executed by all parties, and then the agreement is finally registered on title. After that agreement is registered on title, the building permit process would begin. So next steps and recommendations that come out of this, as additional information comes forward with respect to this bill and different regulations surrounding its implementation are known, we'll make sure we come back to council and update council accordingly regarding any changes to our planning process and the daily operations behind it. So this report we're looking for a recommendation that the report made by the Director of Planning regarding the recently approved Provincial Bill 109 and subsequent amendments to the Planning Act be received. And the second ask is that council approve the site plan delegation bylaw within the bylaw section of tonight's agenda in accordance with the provincially legislated requirements, which delegates site plan approval authority to staff and appoints the Director of Planning and Development, Vidrick Beggs, and in the alternative, the Deputy CAO as the assignees responsible to oversee and approve site plan control applications. Happy to answer any questions of council.
Councillor Reno, then Deputy Mayor Malash.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I'm just wondering, first of all, thank you for the presentation because I had a bunch of questions and I think they've all been pretty well answered. I specifically want to ask about the flow chart that we just looked at. What I'm wondering is this new legislation, obviously we have to enact it and we have to have our delegates. How much time, if the full intent of this bill was to streamline the process and to make it quicker, how much quicker is it now making it? Is it just basically taking away the rubber stamp that's at this table, which would be about a 2-week process, or are you gaining something that we might not see?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Reno. Yeah, it's a really good one. I think ultimately it eliminates the need to go back to council and ask for the final approval. But as part of the new timeline requirements in terms of the 30 days and the 60 days, it really puts the pressure on administration to get those applications turned around in a timely fashion. So I think stay tuned in terms of how much time it will save. I think the punitive element to that is that it's meant to save a lot of time and it's meant to really put the onus of the responsibility back onto administration and staff and to incent sort of timely decision making.
Thank you. I'm sure you are all up to the challenge. Thank you.
I hope so.
Ms. Beggs, before we go to Deputy Mayor, can you not share your screen because I cannot see Councillor Dicho Spagnolo? Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Through you. I guess I have 2 quick questions. The one question I have is regarding public meetings. So currently, we offer a public meeting for, I guess, concerns, correct?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Malash. Currently, there's no Planning Act requirement for a public meeting associated with the site plan approval application. So I think you'd probably see a public meeting component as part of a rezoning application, and we would normally take rezonings together with the site plan approval. So yeah, you will no longer have a public meeting associated with the site plan approval process. We'll continue to monitor concerns from residents as they come in, and we can certainly relay those to council, but there'll be no sort of opportunity or venue for the public to voice concerns about site plan approval process.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for there. And my last question is the last part of your report is about financial implications. Technically, if you look at this is a pretty fast timeline of about 6 months to implement all these phases, where obviously we don't have a estimate of what could be required, but it does say we may need additional staff. So I guess how or when do we figure out what is going to be required? Is it just we're going to try it out for a few months and hope it works, or what's the plan?
Yeah, really good question. I think as the province starts to come out with more regulations on how they're going to really manage these timelines, I think we'll have a better understanding of the horsepower that we'll need in-house to be able to see that through. If we're going to be up against, certain timelines for processing, we're probably going to need some additional resources to be able to manage that.
Yeah, I guess I just was wondering if there was any support maybe coming from other financial areas of government, just knowing that some municipalities obviously are a little bit busier when it comes to builds. Some aren't and can handle that extra stress put on them. But, anyone fortunate enough to have building like we do, or even Lakeshore, this could be quite a concern for our municipality. So I just wasn't sure if there's a funding maybe coming down the line to support that.
I hope that through, the work that the province is doing over the next couple of months, that might be something that they look at. I know they were looking at different funding opportunities for technological support in terms of, you know, I know we're going online with our building permit system and maybe they come back with some funding opportunities for, you know, to streamline the site plan approval process in that way. So I think, yeah, I think they're doing the research to understand better what will be required to support it.
Mr. Militia.
Just a further comment to augment the information that Ms. Beggs has provided. Certainly, there are limited opportunities that the government's able to provide for one-time costs. The difficulty is those are generally not ongoing costs that would relate to staff or anything like that. And so, you know, obviously, as council will note, a lot of the changes that have been made as part of this legislation are, I'm going to say, developer friendly. We'd like to think that we were already developer friendly here in LaSalle, but certainly maybe in some communities they weren't quite as friendly as us, let's just say. And as a result, the legislation has come forward, and there was a big push by the development community to help with that because timelines were very important to them. And so we are going to see some additional pressures, again, depending on the level that the regulations go into detail. I would suspect, given what we've seen thus far, we will see some additional pressures in our planning and development department that will need to be rectified by virtue of additional staffing. There's just, I don't see a way around it, and I wish I had better news. But while these changes are welcomed by the development community, it will force us to be much faster than we normally are. And so from that perspective, we anticipate that some of our operational changes will start to follow suit. So we have some challenges ahead of us with respect to that, but hopefully, again, with the implementation timeline and with the release of the regulations, that will help us better understand where potentially those needs are going to be. And hopefully we will be able to accomplish that prior to the 2023 budget sessions, should we have to get that far.
I see no other questions. I have a couple. I know we have a 5-star staff. So if the application came in today with all the documentation, as you stated, it's 30 days, but all the information has to be there. There's no back and forth. What would your normal time frame be?
Well, considering I need a month to get on a council agenda.
Oh, so it's our fault.
That was just a plug for the planning department. I don't know. Alan,
The clerk's fault.
do you have any suggestions there in terms of processing?
Through your worship, I would typically say 3 to 4 months is our typical processing time, provided that we have all the documents. Really, this process, which is going to be just coming forward, really is going to require an enhanced level of detailed examination of all the reports to declare them that everything is in place, that there will be no opportunity to go back and say, can you also do this? Can you also do that? So it's going to be a challenge for us, working with engineering and with legal to be able to kind of bring it all together as quickly as it's being required. So stay tuned.
I guess my point is,
Just further, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, further to that, one of the challenges that we will have with this is, as much as this has been widely accepted by the development community, I think what Ms. Beggs and Mr. Burgess are also alluding to is that it has been a very collaborative process for us as we've gone through development stages. And so where developments come in with a concept, they may not have all the background information that's required. And so it's going to be incumbent on us to let them know that the 30-day clock doesn't start to tick until we get the last report in. And that's something that is unusual and will be unfamiliar to our development community. They will need to do much more work before they come in the door, as opposed to what they do right now. So we will be able to mitigate some of that. That doesn't necessarily mean that will be entirely mitigated, but they will have to be more prepared when they come to us, as opposed to how they have been used to dealing with us. And again, this is that the changes that are based in the legislation are really around, I mean, I know this may come as a surprise, a GTA model where, you know, the development community are well versed with the number of consultants and reporting that's required to have that complete application. So that's where the important point to note here is that, yes, we will be under the gun. There's no doubt about that. I'm not trying to wash over that. But the development community will also, they will start to hear from us. This is not a complete application. You need to have A, C, and D. And where they're perhaps used to having that more of an iterative process as they're going through. So it's a change in how we do business.
Just, sorry, if I can just add to that, Mr. Militia, you have to give us 60 days. It's not 30 days, it's 60 days. But just to piggyback on that point, I think it's a really good one. We were talking as the group of planners around Essex County the other day, we had a meeting, and, you know, there's going to have to be, to Mr. Militia's point, a high level of scrutiny, you know, to these reports when they come in from the very beginning, right? Out of the gate, they're going to have to be, you know, pretty detailed, pretty comprehensive, pretty robust, in order to substantiate the development. And we won't start that 60-day clock until we know that it's complete and that it's satisfactory to the town.
And we will get you on council agenda less than a month.
Okay.
Councilor Desjardins.
Thank you. Through you to Ms. Beggs. So you were just talking about the fact that the planning departments around the county have had meetings. Have we been meeting on a regular basis with the fill-in the developers about what's going forward and kind of giving them some really good guidelines on how we're all going to move forward together?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. It's a really good point. I don't know how much information the development community really has about this. But we're in the county OP review process now, and we are going to be integrating a lot of this information and language and these timelines into that new document. So they will have that knowledge and we'll be aware of that. But as you know, we roll out some of these new regulations, we'll be sure to communicate it to our local development community as a department.
Thank you. A lot of information. Council's pleasure. Moved by Deputy Mayor Meloche, support Councilor Desjardins. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. County of Essex correspondence regarding the WICU requesting support for the active school travel charter for Windsor Essex County. Motion to receive. Moved by Councilor Carrick, support Deputy Mayor Meloche. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. April 2022 financial statement and financial records. Mr. Longwell.
Your worship, members of council. As at the end of April, what I can say is there's really nothing unexpected at this point in our financial performance so far this year. There are a couple areas where we're tracking higher than budget as expected. One being the emergency management, as we were shut down for January and had some security type costs and whatnot. The second being the garbage collection contract, which we were all aware of. I spoke about that last meeting. And then third, the Vollmer Recreation Center. Again, it was shut down for the month of January, but on a positive note, it is starting to recover quite well. At the end of April, the performance year over year is tracking $200,000 better than it did the previous year. So we are starting to recover nicely in that area. But other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Seeing no council questions, council's pleasure. Moved by Deputy Mayor Meloche, support Councilor Dicho Spagnolo. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Longwell. Office of the Solicitor General correspondence regarding the completion of the community safety and well-being plan for the city of Windsor and the county of Essex. Motion to receive Councilor Reno, support Councilor Akpata. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. City of Cambridge correspondence requesting support for free public transportation on election day. Councillor Reno.
Thank you, your worship. I know we're just being asked to receive, but I mean, there's always an option to endorse. My question would be, with our structures probably going to the CAO, with the way that we pay for our busing, do we have the option right now of offering that free service without going through the city of Windsor? So knowing that Transit Windsor is a partner of ours, if we are simply going to receive this, and we wanted to do this in the future and they decided they didn't want to do that, is that something we can still do without going through any formal process here?
So I believe that we can and have done this in the past. The only caveat I will say is that if there happens to be a pickup in Windsor that is traveling to LaSalle, I don't believe that they recognize the free fare coming out of Windsor. So if you happen to board a bus within the Windsor jurisdiction coming into LaSalle, you still have to pay. But within LaSalle and effectively within LaSalle or in LaSalle moving out of LaSalle, that would be the free ride.
Thank you. Knowing that that those things exist, I would be willing to start a conversation about endorsing this and sending our endorsement of this project, especially if there's any kind of provincial money that may come from a ministry or anything. I think it's a great initiative, and I think it helps the accessibility of the people in our community, gets them where they need to go for free. So I think it's a good initiative, and it may help voter turnout. So if there's anybody else that has a comment, I would make a motion to endorse this and send a letter.
Again, if I could just clarify your motion, again, if it's council's wish to have free transit rides in LaSalle on election day, I would ask that be the motion, and then that way we will make that happen administratively on our end.
I'm fine with that. If you can make that happen without going through the formal process of involving everyone else, then I'm fine with that. I will make the motion. I'll make the motion that I would like for us to offer free transit on election day. Hold on. Let me think about this for 1 second. We're completely online, are we not?
We are online.
Yeah, we're completely online. So this isn't going to help our residents in any way. They're already online. They don't have to come to a polling position. Okay, I apologize. I'd like to withdraw my other, as I did not think that through clearly. Thank you.
That's okay. We're doing a lot of thinking here. Councillor Deputy Mayor Meloche.
Looking at the issue in front of us, though, I do support what they're trying to do in the city of Cambridge. So I think if we just show them that we do support, I don't know if that's I think what's being recommended to us. So I'd be fine supporting what was put before us this evening.
Okay, so moved by Deputy Mayor Meloche to support by Councillor Descharlet. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Summary of reports to council. Moved by Deputy Mayor Meloche, support. Yes. Let's have a supporter. You'll support, then we'll question. Okay. Support, Councillor
Through you
Carey.
to administration, just item number 1, the BIA, are we moving that forward at all? Are we talking about it? Because it just seems like it's been to the end of the year. I know it's been busy in the pandemic and everything, and I know it's hard to get people together. Just kind of an update on where that's at, as opposed to saying the end of 2022. Thank you.
Certainly, again, we, excuse me, we have been challenged with the pandemic in terms of trying to get some movement in this area. And that's something we're hoping to have some background information available to council by budget session so that we can fold that in.
Okay, thank you.
On the motion, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Bylaws, we have 5 bylaws, all 3 readings. Deputy Mayor Malash, Councillor Akpata, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Committee matters. Fire Committee meeting, May 19th, 2020, that the minutes of the Fire Committee be received. Moved by Councillor Carrot, support by Councillor Reno, all in favor? That carries. Parks and Rec and Events Committee meeting, May 19th, 2022, be received. Moved by Councillor Akpata, support Deputy Mayor Malash, all in favor? That carries. Councillor Akpata, I should have asked Councillor Reno, go back. Any comments? None? Thank you. Okay. Questions and statements by council members. We'll go with Councillor Akpata, then Councillor Richo Spagnolo.
Thank you, Your Worship. As the chair of the Parks and Rec Committee, I want to thank everyone who attended the Strawberry Fest. I want to thank the public for their attendance. I want to thank the volunteers for cutting strawberries. It was an outstanding community event, from the cutting and cleaning of strawberries to the wrap up of the Strawberry Festival. And also, just very rarely do I go on social media and review things, but I want to say one thing here in this room, that the security that we have at the Strawberry Fest, if we look at some of the things that happened on Saturday, Parliament Hill was locked down because of a bomb threat. Today, my children didn't go to Sandwich Secondary School because of threatening words written on a bathroom wall. The security that we put in this municipality is designed for one thing: to ensure the safety of all people, to ensure that a family-friendly event stays that, and that we hired a competent security unit to deal with it. Unfortunately, the times have changed, Your Worship, and we cannot simply say it's LaSalle, there shall be no problem. I wish that was the case, and I'm glad that there was no issue. But the competency of the combined security with police, fire, the administrative team, and the security department ensured a family-friendly event. Let me apologize to anyone who felt offended that their bags were searched or that their liquid in clear bottles was poured out, because we could not be sure if it was alcohol. We could not be sure if it was a number of things. But at the end of the day, I understand, Your Worship, that we had an outstanding turnout. I was there and I saw the facility fully used. For my children who went, they had an absolute ball. So to the entire management team, from the staff that ensured that it was clean, to the leadership team, I want to thank you for what you did, and for the security that we had to ensure that our function went off without a hitch. I thank all of the uniform members here and the members of the men under the CAO for the work that they did. Thank you, Your Worship.
Very well said, Councillor Akpata. We always talk about safety as number one. And then when you imply safety protocols, some people might be inconvenienced, but that's step number one. That happens. And with, sadly, to the comments you made about the two events at Parliament and Sandwich Secondary School, thank God we have LaSalle's finest as well as administration to bring in a nice security team. And Mr. Militia, he takes the complaints, but he has to take the congrats as well as the top dog. So thank you, Mr. Militia, and your team. It's always Team LaSalle, right? So good comments. Thank you, Mr. Militia.
If I can, again, we certainly will go through a post-event debrief with our own team here and try to address and think of methods to try to make it better for next year. But certainly there are some things we won't be bending on, and that security is one of them. And then that's certainly, unfortunately, the way of the world today, and we'll have to do that. I would, as much as I'd love to take some credit for this, there's none for me. I think certainly the Culture and Rec team led by Mrs. Fernaro did an incredible job of orchestrating the event. Certainly Mr. Osborne and his team in the public works area, Chief Davies and Deputy Chief Woods with their team in police. Again, it was a very coordinated effort, and it was quite evident with the staff that were there. am remiss if I don't recognize Mr. Langlois and Mr. Ferraro for counting all the money. I think actually Mr. Ferraro is still counting the money that came in the door. But certainly, again, it was certainly a team effort, a well-coordinated effort, certainly with our own team and with the security service that we had come in, along with a lot of the volunteers that came through that. But a smashing event. Our numbers were somewhere around 33,000 attendees compared to an average of about 25,000. And so certainly time to celebrate. There was a bit of relaxation on Sunday evening when everything went off. And I will say that, to those that were in attendance, we also thank you. I mean, there was a lot of patience that was necessary. There were long lines at times. The weather was really good and people were excited to be there. And that was all positive notes. But thank you to those that certainly have attended for their patience as traveling through those long lines and being respectful as we go through there. Certainly we had a few minor events, but nothing major, and we knock on wood for that. And again, that goes a lot to the pre-planning and having that presence there as part of the event. So congratulations to the entire team. And I think, we're really excited that it went off really well. We look forward to kind of the debrief of celebrating all the success and looking at some of the areas that we might need a bit more improvement. And believe it or not, I hate to say this, but in about a month or two's time, we start planning for next year's festival. So as much as there is no rest for the wicked, sometimes again we will begin planning for the next event in a few months' time, and look forward to doing that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Militia. Councillor Edicio Spagnolo.
Thank you. Through you. I just had a question for Mrs. Finaro. I did have a couple of residents as well as organizations reach out to me in regards to the event center. They think it looks incredible, but they did have a question on when you will be accepting requests and bookings and what the process is for that. So if you can just give me just a brief summary, so if they are listening, they can take notes, and if not, then I will take the notes for them and relate the message. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So now that the Strawberry Festival is over, we will be turning our attention back to the plans for the event center, and we will be doing an expression of interest process for community events that are interested in coming in. We don't have confirmation of when things will be completed, so we are still aiming for events to begin in 2023, so that we are certain that construction is done and that we have time to be in the building and understand how it operates and put all of our plans in place. But we do anticipate probably in the next month or two that we would be doing that expression of interest process.
Thank you, Councillor Edicio Spagnolo. Councillor Akpata.
One more, Your Worship, through you to Mr. Osborne. Mr. Osborne, you'd assisted me in helping a resident of Bayshard Beach with some issues in their backyard, and they have received the documentation the municipality sent out, and I was out there to speak with the resident just to make sure that we had a concrete level of understanding. And what she's asked me for, is there any direction that you can give me outside of the letter that the residents have received that I can help them move their concerns forward? Thank you, Worship.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Akpata, through you, Your Worship. Yeah, we did receive the complaints. We were out there as well, looked into it fairly extensively, and we did check in with our legal counsel as well, Mr. Dedalt. And really, it does come down to the fact that it's a civil matter between two private property owners, and there's not really a place where we can get much more involved in that.
Thank you, Worship. And just so you understand, sir, the letter was very well written. It was very well taken. And like I said, I just wanted to make sure when I report back to the residents that that's the advice that I'm going to ensure that they follow. Thank you, sir.
Sadly, that issue will never go away. Two neighbors. Any other statements, questions by council members? Confirmatory bylaw, all three readings. Councillor Carrick, Councillor Desjardins, all in favor? That carries. We have our scheduled meeting. Thank you, viewing audience, for anyone who joined us. Meeting adjourned.